Indonesians don't open up so easily, right? This is again purely for Indian founders who are building for Indonesia and thinking of coming to Indonesia and build something or launch their product in Indonesia. I think Indonesian culture is not open until the point that it is really open. So I think you need to build that rapport early on and build that trust, because people are very genuine, and once they're bought into the mission, they will go all out of their way to build for you, right? And to like work for the company and build the best product, tech, or whatever it is that they're doing. But it takes some time for them to open up, and I think Indian culture is a bit different, where it is a little bit more direct. Feedback is given directly. Indonesian culture is slightly more reserved in that sense. So you have to be like sensitive about it, understand it, and then I think navigate it.
Hey, Chinmay, thanks a lot for agreeing to do this. Very excited about this, not only because you're an alum of the same college as mine, but also, you have a very special journey where you built a company in Indonesia, having grown up entirely in India. So really looking forward to this conversation and your learnings.
Same here, Aviral. Thanks for having me, and thanks, Mazin, as well.
Cool. Chinmay, maybe if you could start, go all the way back before college, growing up, where were you? Any early influences that helped you think that, hey, you know what, building a company is what I want to do? Maybe would love to learn that. Any early days, family influences, friend influences that helped you make the decision?
So I think let me go back. So I come from a very humble background. Was born and raised in Mumbai, and my mom was a home tailor, and she was doing a business of saris and buying it from from Gujarat and selling it in Mumbai, right? Doing overnight trips to get that arbitrage on buying it in wholesale and selling it on retail to the neighborhood, right? And she was running the business from her own from our own house. And she was also a pretty good tailor, so she was complementing the income of my dad, right? And my dad did multiple different businesses which didn't go very well, and shifted to other businesses, and now he's doing like he's like a textile uh, like trader kind of in that sort of business. um, so I think like my family has always been small businesses, micro businesses. We particularly didn't have any entrepreneurial background, if of like I didn't have any such influences, but at the same time, if I look at my family, everyone was doing some sort of a small business. Uh, and uh, so when I was growing up, I was like all the focus was just on getting the best education, and just then later getting into IITs, and and then sort of getting a steady job, right, of which pays you enough per month. So that was the problem, because family wasn't financially too well off, and so they were sort of indirectly looking at me to fix that, right? With a lot of support, of course. So I think wherever I am, it's all because of my mom and the rest of the family. uh, so I think like that was pretty much it. So I got into IIT. I did the time there. I took a job. One of my first jobs was in Singapore, which paid well. After my first job, I think my mom and dad didn't really have to work for the sake of working. So and that was around almost 8 years ago, right? So and the idea of doing a startup came around 2 years ago, when some of my mentors at Carousel, same for me, my co-founder, we sort of shared the same mentors, and they were basically executives at Carousel, right? And they said, why don't you both of you go and do a startup together? uh, So that's how it was. That's how it started. And both of us already had enough experience in Southeast Asia, so it made sense for us to start up for Indonesia after. And we put a good bit of thought into it on why and what and which idea and why. So happy to share that more.
Thank you for sharing, and pretty amazing your story. I think it would have given you a lot of hunger to build something big. And I guess the paths to going to Singapore maybe would have been defined by monetary requirements. But curious to understand when you decided it was time to take that leap of faith, because you mentioned your humble backgrounds. It would not have been easy to give up a job and take a risk, right? I mean,
Yeah.
founders need to have that safety net as well. Very few people appreciate it, but you need to have that safety net because you could be like not making money for some time. So what was that decision making, and specifically why did you decide to build for the Indonesian market versus India, where you grew up?
So first question, I think it took me 6 years to get there. In even after that, I was not sure if I should do it because and I think because we all come from that job mindset. I think it has changed a lot in the last 10 years in India for sure. But the mindset is like, and especially influenced by family, where you get a steady paying income and you're stable, right? The definition of stability in Indian families is that so startup is not seen as something that is stable, and it is not, right? It is super challenging. So definitely that safety net uh, was there a little bit because I had built up the savings over the for 5-6 years I lived in Singapore. So I saved whatever I could and sent a good bit of that back to India so that my family was financially well. They don't have to work for the rest of their lives, and even I mean, I could go on for a few years without working. So that bit of safety was there, and then that extra nudge was and came from some of our mentors, and like to start up, and it was also the combination of me and Abhinay coming together and discussing this, and we seeing how passionate each of us is about building for MSMEs. Right, both of us came from similar backgrounds. Abhinay's mom was still runs an optics shop, like a small optics shop in a tier 2 town in India, in Andhra. Um, so I think similar sort of background, we empathized with the problem a lot. So small businesses go through a lot of struggle managing their cash flow, managing their accounting, managing working capital, stocking up their inventory. Just having good, like just having a good financial awareness of how their business is doing is missing. And so we went to Indonesia for uh, in different parts of Indonesia. We spoke to around 400 plus merchants of different types, and we understood that there is a massive miss that the whole ecosystem has there, right? The massive gap that the ecosystem has in terms of how much has been done from a product standpoint, from a tool standpoint, for enabling micro businesses and small businesses. And in Indonesia, I think like the moment you get outside of Jakarta, uh, the exterior parts of Jakarta, and Jakarta is a massive city. So like there is central Jakarta and there is uh, suburbs of Jakarta. And the moment you go to the suburbs, you will see that the penetration of any wallet or any major tech player is non-existent. Everything is happening offline. Everything is traditional. Everything happening on books, or payments are happening in cash. When they want a loan, they go to loan sharks or their families, right? When they want to restock, they just go and pick up the products from their wholesaler. They don't get any credit to buy from their wholesaler, right? So a lot of it is we saw a lot of inefficiencies, and then the problem for us was where do we play, right? I mean, as founders, are we the what is the best entry point for us to serve these MSMEs, and how do we build uh, how do we start to build that business, right? So we saw that bookkeeping and cash flow management was a very common problem. across all segments of businesses that we met, right? And we met around 20-30 different types of businesses, and everyone had a common problem of managing their credit and managing their cash flow, and uh, like they didn't understand how much profit they made, how much money they had in hand, how much was their expense, is their business doing better now this month compared to last month, or better this week compared to last week. This was completely missing. So that financial awareness piece was missing, and that is what we intended to solve in our first product, which was the bookkeeping app that we launched. So BukuWarung app is has scaled from zero to more than like 5 million users in the last 1 year, 12 months or so. And in the process, we also launched a couple of other products, which I'm happy to go into as we scale up as a company, as we talk further.
No, amazing. I think if you could talk a little bit about where BukuWarung is today, and then we could deep dive into the topic which we have for today. Would love to understand that. I think we spoke about the early days. You've grown a lot since then. Could you share that growth with us and where you are today?
We were at 50,000 odd users, before we raised our first ever round of funding. So we grew the business purely with our own uh, bootstrapped capital, and around 12 months ago is when we closed our first round of funding, which was the seed round. After that, over the last 12 months, it has just been crazy hyper growth, quarter on quarter, month on month. We have scaled the app from 50,000 users to 5 million plus users using our platform. We have scaled we have scaled our payment volume in the last 4 to 5 months since we launched, from zero to close to $1 billion in TPV soon. And that is something that is massive in scale. If we are one of the fastest growing payment startup in Indonesia in the last 10 years, right? And that is purely because we understood the problem, and a lot of the payments growth that we had is product led, uh, and very tightly coupled with our accounting product. We launched another product on last year, around Q4, which is the Shopify equivalent for MSMEs to go online as a business. And this was primarily launched in response to COVID, and some of our top merchants asking us, uh, hey, my revenues are drying up and I don't know how to get more customers. And in response to that, we launched this app to enable merchants to start an online business with a few clicks, right? And so for us, this was one of the major products that we launched, and it has scaled to 1 million plus users in the last 4 or 5 months since we launched. Our team size has grown by more than 10x uh, in the last 6 months. In the last 12 months, we went from just me and my co-founder to now close to 100 people in the company. So it has just been a lot of growth across all fronts, as we scaled up through COVID.
It sounds like it's been an incredible 12 months for you guys. Would love to learn more about it as we talk about our topic for this week, which is straddling a cultural divide to build. So wanted to talk about the market. A lot of people say Indonesia is the next India, China. So what are some of the differences between India and Southeast Asia in general?
Yeah, I think this is a good question. We like people tend to oversimplify and compare, but I think Southeast Asia is a very fragmented market. Southeast Asia is composed of 8 to 10 different other. Uh, it is it takes $50, and everyone is used to paying this. So this is not a small thing. I mean, imagine paying for a bank transfer in India. I think none of us could imagine that even like 5-7 years ago. But that's already happening as of today in Indonesia. Then there is the infrastructure part, right? I think one example is Geo, which is the which made data extremely cheap and almost zero cost, right? So much like people are downloading apps left, right, center. People are watching videos. It's like, so there is a lot of growth in tier 3, tier 4. It is happening in Indonesia, but at a lesser pace. Uh, and then also the overall banking infrastructure, payments infrastructure, financial infrastructure that exists, right, to serve small businesses, micro businesses, is kind of missing. Not a lot of disruption has happened in the last few years in Indonesia compared to India. So there is, I mean, I can go on and on. There is a lot of nuances that exists when you are building for Indonesia. Language is another one where, compared to India, I think Indonesia is a lot more local language heavy on how much preference is being given to, Bahasa Indonesia, and that's just how it is, right? I think from a local standpoint. Happy to like deep dive into any specific question that you have. But one thing that we learned was the product that you build for India does not sort of scale to Indonesia. This is just an observation that I have seen over the last few years. Not just India, any global product company that is trying to launch Indonesia can't just launch Indonesia and scale that product. I think there is a fair bit of localization that you have to do and build a strong local presence to understand the users and really, outserve them to win the market, right? And a lot of players have failed. There is a history of number of players who are global players who launched in Indonesia and sort of wrapped up and then, exited the market. I think Uber being the biggest one when they sold off the business to Grab a few years ago, and when I was part of Grab and working there. So got a good bit of learning from that experience, and like for us, it was very clear we will be in Indonesia, we will have a strong local presence. In fact, we will move to Indonesia, right? So my co-founder is already there. I am in the process of moving soon. But I think like for us, it's been like all in, right? Like that experience from the past really helped us sort of do extra to navigate the local landscape and really build the best product for merchants in Indonesia.
That's quite the insight, and you mentioned a lot of companies coming into Indonesia and the need to localize for that market. So can you maybe give us an example of how you went about validating your idea and how you went about getting your first few customers?
We launched the app late 2019, and our app started seeing organic traction on the app, on the product, right? And we saw good engagement, good retention. We iterated the product a lot in the first few months, and naturally we are very product driven founders, given our past experience, very product and tech heavy. That is how we have built the team. So for us it was like, hey, is the do we have product market fit? Are the merchants happy? Have we like, how do we improve the product experience further? What other use cases can we launch? So we did a good bit of this before we even went out and raised our first round of funding. And we only raised after we had significant traction, like 50,000 plus users, good set of cohort using our app daily. And then we went out and raised the round, which happened pretty much at the same time as COVID. So I think it was just like launching the app and experimenting. But like the macro level opportunity was very evident to us when the macro level opportunity is evident to everyone, right? You read a bunch of these studies and you'll get it. But the micro level, when we went on the ground, it gave us a very strong conviction that this space is going to be exciting and deep enough for us to build for the next 10 years and build a large unicorn in this space, right? Because there is so many different problems to be solved for SMBs, and for MSMEs, there is around 60 million of them in Indonesia, and around 100 million of them in Southeast Asia, right? And in Indonesia particularly, MSMEs have a very huge contribution to the economy. So around 60% of the GDP of Indonesia comes from micro MSMEs as per the government statistics, right? So this 60% is a very large number. If you compare that to India, it's around 30% or so in India. So the dependence on of the economy on small warungs and small businesses is massive, and the Indonesian government understands this. If you look at the way the Indonesia government treated the COVID lockdown versus how the Indian government did it, that should tell you on how they see it differently, the segment from a demographic standpoint, and how important it is to the economy. So I think that, so for us it was just it was very evident the kind of opportunity that existed, and then the launching the app and seeing that customer pull and customer love was something that gave further conviction for us to scale and get external capital to scale the business.
That makes sense. But just curious, do you speak the language? How did you go and talk to your first few vendors?
So I speak a little bit, very broken. I think having been here for the last 8 years odd has taken me to Indonesia many times. I've been there a lot of times, and lived there for long periods of time, and that definitely helped. At the same time, I think because we have been in the region for so long, we have enough of a network to tap into, and literally we just took a translator and went from street to street talking to merchants, right?
You would think that having a
and
translator would make it a little awkward, but yeah, it seems like it worked out for you guys, right? As long as you're giving them something they really need.
Yeah, I think it was just like it is literally just this, right? You just go to their shop, the translator warms them up. Translator or our friends, right? Like some of our early folks who helped us early are already part of our team now. So there were people we worked with, ex-colleagues, from our previous companies who are Indonesians, and other friends who helped us out right in the early days. So it was not just all translators, but yeah, I mean, think if you have a good translator, they can just warm up the warung, and then you just ask questions, right? And you just buy like a small drink from them, and then they'll be happy to talk to you for 20-30 minutes, right? Which is
Yeah.
which is the best way to do your user research, which is something that we missed during COVID, because it still hasn't kickstarted fully.
Did you take any inspiration from India and your early days? You mentioned that your family has always been in this kind of small business space.
I think the main reason why we started this building for this space, the MSME digitization space, was because of our family influence. But at the same time, we also had a framework on which idea to go for. We can't be all emotional about it. So for us, it was like three criteria. One is, are we the best team to build for this in this space, right? Build for MSMEs. Do we have the right set of domain experience, context? And we did, right? Both me and Abhi have been building for merchants, drivers, sellers in the last many years at Grab, Carousel, Kudo, and other companies. And so that gave us a good understanding of the Indonesian market, right? And we have already launched and scaled many products for this segment of users. So we understand what it takes to sort of to build that product that MSMEs will use on their own. And I think and second was, is the market deep enough, right? As I mentioned earlier, can there be like 10 unicorns coming out of this in the next 5 years? And I think the answer is yes, because the market that everyone is going after, or we are going after, is massive. So there will be multiple large companies coming out of it, and we definitely want to be one of those. Third is, are we passionate about what we are doing, right? Because this is a 10-year journey, and would you do it if even if you didn't get like paid well, or if you remove the financial outcome from this whole equation, would you still be happy at the end, right? Would you have created meaningful impact in people's life who need that help, right? And the answer is yes, and it was a very strong yes, and that was one of the main reasons why we picked this space, because there were other ideas that we considered. So I'll be very honest, there were other ideas that we considered, but this space and this segment of users to serve was closer to our heart, because our parents have been through that struggle, right? So we saw how hard it is. I was doing bookkeeping in my dad's footwear shop when he had that, right, until it failed. So so I think due to bad credit and I think mismanagement of so I think we've been through enough struggle to empathize with that, and this was something that we were passionate about, like hands down. So we, like, every time we talk to merchant, it just energizes us a lot whenever they're using our product, and how much it is helping them. That just creates that strong energy, and that's how we are building the culture across the company, right? Everyone who has joined us empathizes with the problem and is very passionate about serving MSMEs. So I think those three were the criteria to pick this idea and build for this space.
So that's a good framework, for our listeners as well to keep in mind when they're kind of deciding which business idea they want to go with. But you touched on this a bit and wanted to deep dive a bit into the team. You mentioned that you started off with some of your colleagues that you worked with previously, but can you tell us how you went about hiring the team, especially given that you were in Indonesia? And
I think like our first 50 employees just came from like referrals and our own network. I mean, I'll be honest, I think as founders you just have to pick those first 10-20 folks yourself, and for us it was until 50. We are hiring only from our network, and that is what worked very well for us. uh, and uh, and it was just literally just telling people on what we are doing and convincing them. And I'll be very honest, right? I think the first 10 employees were the hardest to get. Like, it was insanely hard to convince folks to just join us, right? As a startup, which is even after we had raised a decent seed round, I think it was hard to convince people to come and join us. And we are very grateful as founders for those early joiners who trusted us and joined our rocket ship, right? It wasn't a rocket ship back then. It was just a young startup which with little traction, with some funding, right, and two Indian founders building for Indonesia, which was so I think we are very grateful. And there is most of the early folks were people in Indonesia, and people who we spoke to, we engaged early on, and convinced them to come on board, right? And then they brought more people in, and then we brought more people in. As we scaled, we got into YC, we raised more round of funding, there was more press around us, right? Organic, inorganic, right? So I think it naturally, there was, like, it got easier is what I can say. It's not easy, but I think it's relatively easier than 12 months ago. I think hiring has been one of the hardest things as founders for us. It still
that's
remains.
something we've heard repeatedly from a lot of people. Hiring is one of. Then just curious, so how much of your time do you spend on recruiting?
I think it would still be 50%. Yeah. Just talking to people and either convincing them now, or there are people that who are still not ready, right? And you still engage them a few months ahead, and then they join. So I think we do a fair bit of that. So that's why I think, for unlike a lot of early stage startups who end up outsourcing their recruiting, as founders we are heavily engaged with even the junior most folks that we are bringing on board. For example, we, like, in the few months ago, I closed some associate PM roles, right? Like the junior most level in the PM org, and I was just engaging them, convincing them one-on-one to join us, right? So I think, like, we do that a fair bit, because the reason for that is, one, like, getting the right people with the right mindset, and the smartest people, right, is very important. Now, like, you can get the smartest people on board, but they might not have the right mindset. And so for us, culture trumps everything else. And so we want to build a very strong culture. We have built a very strong culture already, but we want to sustain it as we scale another 10x. So it is super important to filter them out, right? And then hopefully your leadership will do that. And we have like around 10 people in the leadership now, and they are all like following into that culture filters that should exist, right? Because you don't want people to come in just for uh, for uh, for reasons that are not right, like, where you want people who are passionate about this space, and then everything else, right? Then everything else can be figured out. Yeah.
That makes sense, and something we've heard a few times. But talking about culture and kind of the cultural gap between you and perhaps some of the people that you were recruiting, were there any learnings or any observations about uh, cultural differences?
I think Indonesia is a unique market, right? We The more we have been, involved in building BukuWarung, the more we have learned, and whatever we have learned in the last 12 months has been exponentially higher than whatever we have learned in the last few years of our career, right? As professionals. So I think that's just one part of being a founder, where your learning curve is 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 just insane. And if you don't do that, then you die. So it's not something, it's not a luxury, right? You have to learn and grow quickly. And so for us, one of the biggest learnings was, uh, I think, if like, Indonesians don't open up so easily, right? This is again purely for Indian founders who are building for Indonesia and thinking of coming to Indonesia and build something, or launch their product in Indonesia. I think Indonesian culture is not open until the point that it is really open. So I think you need to build that rapport early on and build that trust, because people are very genuine, and once they're bought into the mission, they will go all out of their way to build for you, right? And to like work for the company, and build the best product, tech, or whatever it is that they're doing. But it takes some time for them to open up, and I think Indian culture is a bit different, where it is a little bit more direct. Feedback is given directly. Indonesian culture is slightly more reserved in that sense. So you have to be like sensitive about it, understand it, and then I think navigate it, right? And that's something that we knew about it before we started, but I think we faced more of those nuances. And as we wanted to scale up massively, right? Because when you want to do so many things in just 12 months, go from 0 to 100 people, I think the kind of insights that you get are also manifold, and you have to quickly change your how you do things. We are lucky that we have built a very strong Indonesian team, and I think this understanding of this nuance, and a lot of our early Indonesian founding team members also helped us understand this, right? So I think we, as founders, one thing that we are constantly doing is just listen to our team and getting their feedback and how people are feeling on the ground, and sort of how do we fix that, right? In the moment there is some issue, we try to go out and fix it. If there is someone feeling uh, demotivated, or someone not feeling impactful about what they're doing, I think those are like common problems that happen, especially in a fast growing startup, where you are doing a lot of things. You tend to burn out, and so you have to manage those balance you have to balance that out and constantly celebrate your wins. I think one thing is that has worked well. I'm pretty sure it's true for other markets as well, is the culture of appreciation. So we appreciate our employees a lot, and this is also a learning for us as we sort of scaled up, where I think the morale is a lot more higher when you're appreciating and celebrating wins, big wins, small wins, and celebrating small wins more often, right? I think big wins do come, but they take time. So celebrating small wins and employees for their contribution, and everyone is working insanely hard, and we are very grateful for that. So we just do a little bit to celebrate and appreciate them from time to time.
And when it sounds easy, just listen to your employees, but with 100 people and a company that's growing so quickly, I'm sure it's not. But would like to talk a bit about the investor landscape. Was it easy to raise money in Indonesia? What are some of the differences between Indonesia and India in terms of fundraising?
I think my feedback, my insight here was, I think us being for any founders actually building for Indonesia, it is very important to have strong local investors on the cap table, right? So for us, the priority was, how do we get the best of the Indonesian investors. So we have East Ventures, we have AC Ventures, we have Alpha Mart, we have Sampurna Group, right? Michael Sampurna is the owner of Sampurna Group. And we have a bunch of local investors on the cap table, and this was our seed round, and rounds after that. So for us, the preference has always been getting the Indonesian investors, because you are building for an ecosystem which requires you to have that relationships. And if you're talking about building for the MSME ecosystem, you can't only have global capital and expect to deploy it. And we have seen a lot of failures in the past. Let's just say it this way, right? Big companies, billion-dollar companies, I wouldn't name them, but small like people have failed. And I think one of the reasons is they don't have enough deep relationships in the market. And these are very important when you're building for a uh, for the segment, which is where it becomes pretty much a fintech play. Over time, it is heavily regulated and requires a lot of relationship building early on. So we got capital from them as a priority, and then we have enough founders and executives in Indonesia who have built for Indonesia, who have those relationships, who have backed us, right, and who can help us from pretty much all lengths. Uh, so that was the priority. It was not easy, I would say, but what helped was we were the best team doing this in the region, and we had traction. We had good traction with almost no capital spent. So we closed our round, angel round and seed round, almost back to back, and we have been raising pretty much every quarter after that, which is we have been fortunate to, if I may say so.
That's incredible. But what advice do you have for others, maybe specifically for Indians who want to start businesses in Indonesia?
I think you should, first thing is just to move there and start building those relationships. Uh, I think get the right set of people to back you uh, in your angel round, in your seed round as advisors, and then build that strong first 10-member team, filled with Indonesians, right? I think the best of the talent, and that is where it gets tricky, because imagine, like, why would someone join you, right? When you are not even on the map. So that's where it gets tricky, but I think it's super important. And some of our early angels who are building companies in Indonesia, are founders of some of the large fintech companies in Indonesia, gave us this unfiltered feedback, that get your first 10 employees, right, and get all of them in Indonesia. So that's what we did, and that really helped us to scale on from there.
And I think it's a good segue, Chinmay, into what's next for BukuWarung. How are you guys thinking? What are your plans that you could share potentially um, with us and the listeners?
We are just going to focus on the three areas that we have right now, which is one is accounting, second is payments, third is commerce. We'll just continue iterating on these products. Um, our pace of iteration on the product front has been a lot more faster than typical players. That's primarily because we are a very product focused team. We have been iterating our product. Our products look very different now than, say, let's say 6 months ago. Even the bookkeeping app looks very different than let's say 6 months ago. We recently launched inventory management, invoice management. We launched payments in, payments out last year, which is seeing $1 billion in TPV very soon. Uh, and so I think that pace of execution and iteration has been rapid, and that's something that is a strength for us as a company. So we just want to continue doing that, understand our users better, more deeper, build more use cases for them on these three areas: accounting, payments, commerce, and scale another 10x from here on all fronts.
No, thank you so much, and good luck with that. Hoping for that and more. Um, the final question that we ask our guests is the reason why we call this Founders Unfiltered. What is one piece of unfiltered feedback that you received, either as a during your career when you were not a founder, or as a founder, that really changed the way you looked at things?
I think for some of our early investors basically told us that, hey, you guys are too you definitely have experience, the right set of experience building for Indonesia. I mean, you understand the market and you have built products, but at the end of the day, we are not Indonesians. So I think and that you can't just build up that knowledge by working for the market for a few years. versus someone who has lived their entire lives in the country, right, and born and raised there. So I think we took this feedback to our heart, and we know that this still remains our weakness as founders, but we have always complemented it by hiring the best people who who understand the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 context of Indonesia, not just Jakarta, right? And understand, how the local economy operates, how what kind of businesses are running, how they operate, what are the gaps, right? Just filling up that gap as much as possible to complement our weakness. So I think this was one feedback that we took to our heart, and we still take to our heart. We are always seeking out the best of the talent in Indonesia to join us as we scale up further. Yeah, I would say this was one of the most important feedback that shaped how we think about building a business in Indonesia.
Got it. No, thank you for that. And I think it makes sense. It always is a good reminder of your roots in some sense. So thank you for sharing, Chinmay. Amazing talking to you. We learned a lot in the conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Aviral and Mazin. Thanks for having me.